recently we've both been playing a great deal of Halo Infinite, so it seems like a no-brainer to do some kind of video on the series. Being a nerd, I needed to come up with some sort of mathematical formula to decide what our personal favorite games would be.
We've created 5 categories for each game: narrative, score, gameplay, multiplayer, and a bonus category, assigning each one a number from 1 to 10, adding up our totals and having a ranking for each game out of a possible 100.
This should reduce the chances of ties and provide us a chance to be surprised. And once again, I'd like to stress this is just our personal favorites, not an objective ranking of the series, which would have been a very different list. So, without further ado... Number 10.
Halo 4 might be your favorite Halo game. While it's not either of ours, that is not us saying that it is a bad game. This list is actually made under the opinion that there are no bad Halo games. Maybe games that don't live up to their potential, or don't meet every fan expectation, but as a series, a franchise, a universe even, it's a damn good series. But we have to talk about the Shield World-sized elephant in the room, which is, 343 seems to waffle back and forth on what kind of game they wanted to make here. Ostensibly, this game is not only Chief saying goodbye to Cortana, but it feels like a meta goodbye to the old era of Halo. The remnants of the Covenant, Cortana and Chief alone on an alien installation. Broken UNSC equipment scatters across the landscape. The entire opening is a bit of a greatest hits of the franchise. Hell, the first level starts with the good old-fashioned boarding action. And I'm actually all about it. I love this opening. And then we catch Cancer. And by Cancer, I mean Prometheans. I'm not against new enemies and alien races added to the series, but Prometheans are a symptom of a bigger problem in Halo 4. Aesthetics and readability. Everything across the board here has been desaturated and redesigned to the point where a group of enemies don't read on screen as individual units. In fact, groups of Covenant, Prometheans, and even UNSC blend into a homogeneous mess of gold and gray, or blue and gray, or green and gray. And the gameplay suffers as a result. Combine all this with the simplified AI, and the gameplay becomes the least dynamic in the series, which in turn brings down the quality of the new Firefight co-op hybrid mode called Spartan Ops. Had it been populated with enemies that were fun to fight and had better scenarios, Spartan Ops might have lasted more than one season. Now, all of this explains why it's at the bottom of our list, but as stated, we feel like this is still a compelling game. Why is that? The Master Chief. John has been through hell. While for everyone else, the events of Halo 2 and 3 are long past, for him it's literally been hours since he saved the galaxy. He had to suffer losses of men and women under him, the loss of Miranda and Johnson, but the loss of Cortana is just one too many. The moment Cortana finally reveals that she's dying, Chief drops everything else to protect her. Even though she's become a liability and threatens the success of the entire mission, she's still a part of his team. And this time, no one gets left behind, leading Chief to one of his biggest character growth moments in the series.
Give me that chip. The didact has to be stopped. If you won't do that, I will.
I am ordering you to surrender that AI!
No, sir.
He is given a direct order and chooses not to obey. This isn't some vague command given over a static-filled comms channel. John is surrounded by strangers that outrank him, a superior officer screaming in his face to obey a simple order. John, 117, indoctrinated at the age of 6, trained to be humanity's most loyal soldier, protector of Earth and all her colonies, says, "No, sir." He's going to complete his mission and save his friend. The subsequent missions make up one of the most solid third acts in the series. Hell, you even get to pilot a Pelican legitimately for the first time in the series.
And Chief, good luck. Both of you.
Come on, Chief. take a girl for a ride.
And in the end, Chief and Cortana's final few scenes are heartbreaking. Even if you know the ending, you still feel like there's the smallest, faintest hope that Chief is going to save her. While the story struggles with whether this game acts as a goodbye or a continuation of the franchise, Steve and Jen act the hell out of these scenes.
It was my job to take care of you.
We were supposed to take care of each other.
While there are a myriad of complaints that you could lob at this particular entry, when it could have very well ended up being the last Halo game ever, it wouldn't have been the worst ending in any regard. And I think that's worth something.
That was real nice, Mike.
Thanks.
I'm surprised you didn't talk more about the characters.
They're fine, I guess. There's Lasky, Halsey, Palmer, Del Rio.
Well, yeah, but the Didac and the Librarian's story mirrors Chief and Cortana's. It's about love, sacrifice, the cost of war, how we lose things the more we try to hold on to them.
Didac. Was he important?
He's the main antagonist.
Yeah, not ringing any bells.
Fair enough. Number 9. Coming in at number 9 on our list is Ensemble Studios' Halo Wars. This is one of the strangest entries in the franchise. Halo Wars is the first Halo game not made by Bungie. And supposedly, Bungie was not happy that the game was being made, and weren't very kind to Ensemble Studios either. Which is a shame, as Microsoft forced Ensemble to change one of their projects into a Halo tie-in. And before even finishing the game, Microsoft rewarded them by announcing that they were shutting down their studio. The whole situation was messed up, and Ensemble did not deserve the hand they were dealt. But their final game is actually very good. There's been quite a few attempts to bring real-time strategy games to the consoles, but none really found a way around the limitations of your standard controller. Ensemble's elegant solution was to simplify everything. Base building is basic. There are no workers, the population count is maxed out at 40, the army AI largely does its own thing, requiring only the player to direct them. Is it my favorite RTS? No. Is it in my top 5 RTSs? Again, no. But having something this stable, fun, and engrossing on the Xbox 360 was a feat. And while Ensemble might not have initially wanted to make a Halo game, they certainly didn't let that show. Aesthetically, this is peak Halo. The sounds of the weapons, the diesel engine revving of the Warthog, the animations and the physics, it all screams Halo. The animated cinematics by Blur were amazing back in 2009, and they completely hold up in 2022. The individual maps and mission scenarios are varied and inventive, with a standout mission involving building a base while hiding from a giant partially constructed scarab, moving units when it's not looking and trying to disable it before it can attack again. Tile sets include cities, ruins, forerunner structures, and even the side of the Spirit of Fire. This game also has the honor of being the first Halo game to feature a team of Spartan 2s. And oh my god, did this game ever deliver on the power fantasy of seeing a group of Spartans. In fact, I kinda prefer how Halo Wars portrays the Spartans over how Bungie would later portray them in Halo Reach. I think it also honors the Halo series significantly. The original Halo game started its life as a real-time strategy game, until eventually coming out as a first-person shooter that provided the template for shooters on consoles. And here's Halo Wars, a real-time strategy game that provides a great template for the RTS genre on handheld and consoles. So, if it's fun, inventive, aesthetically gorgeous, and comes with a tragic backstory, why is it so low on our list? Well, for one, its story is really generic, something that's not helped by the fact that it repeats many of the same beats from Halo Combat Evolved. And while I appreciate the effort required to make an RTS like this possible on consoles, that lack of building wherever I want, and that super low population count really limit my enjoyment. Also, the lack of Bungie really supporting the development meant that the game's narrative is so inconsequential that it might as well have never have happened. The characters are also just stock archetypes, well acted and beautifully animated, but written only to deliver exposition and give out mission objectives. While the game sounds authentically like Halo, and has a few new songs that deserve recognition like its title theme, in general, the music is completely forgettable. But, despite its shortcomings, Halo Wars is a fantastic game, one I'd easily recommend to Halo fans. And while its plot is inconsequential, I'm really happy the Spirit of Fire and her crew are in the continuity. Ensemble was mistreated by Microsoft, and closing the studio before releasing the game meant that none of those who worked on it were fairly compensated for their efforts. The quality of the game speaks to the level of talent and dedication that team had.
Number 8. So, it's only number 8, and we're already to Halo Infinite. Are you surprised? Not surprised? To tell you the truth, this surprised the hell out of me when we tallied up all of our criteria for ranking these. As I wrote this entry, though, it began to make more and more sense. Halo Infinite is an incomplete game. Hence the launch parentheses that we added to the title. And the reason we're confident enough to do a placement right at this moment is because there's no guarantee that placement will change in the future. The multiplayer playlists are bare bones, the map list is small, Forge mode, which could augment the amount of maps, is completely absent, and the campaign ends on a cliffhanger. To top it all off, it's the least amount of characters we've had in the series since Combat Evolved. Most of those characters, for better or worse, are completely new, but it feels like an overcorrection for the series. And for anyone who had any questions about what the hell happened in those last 6 months, don't worry, there's a bunch of audio recordings that may or may not pay off later. And you would think, with the soft reset they did, that Infinite's actual narrative would be unhindered. But that's not even true, because now everything in this game exists in the shadow of what came before, like Escarum, while voice acted magnificently, is just an angry red hologram that yells at you occasionally. And while it's low-hanging fruit, his biggest problem is that he's not Atriox. I could go on and on about the weaknesses of the narrative and the villains, or the fact that the biomes of this Halo seem to just be forest or marsh or swamp. You know what? I'm not even going to call it marsh or swamp. There's not that much of a difference. The two biomes of this Halo are forest and a slightly soggier forest. Only it never rains, ever. Huh. But I need to justify this game being on this list, and it is justified, because this game did have an ace up its sleeve, and that ace was Joe Staten. This game feels authentically Halo, when I couldn't say that for any game in nearly a decade. The combat feels right. The look is the proper balance between stylized sci-fi and military shooter. The addition of the grapple hook may have finally usurped that golden triangle of melee, weapons, grenades. So now it could be called the golden square? Rectangle? Trapezoid. Golden trapezoid of combat. Where the vehicles fail in this game at traversal, the grapple shines, and without it, I dare say this game would not have been worth mentioning on this list. It isn't the only bright spot, though. I do enjoy what little exploration we get out of the map. I enjoy the personality that drips from every voice line recorded for friend and foe alike, and for the most part, I like the weapon and pilot, even finding myself growing more attached to them over the course of the game.
I think I'm with you. I didn't even know what a banished was an hour ago, and even I can see the odds aren't great.
Yes. Yes, you should listen to her. You're gonna get us all killed.
Oh, this is fascinating. You're trying to survive, but I was programmed to die.
Really? One person with a death wish wasn't enough.
I temper that attachment knowing that it could be ripped away at any moment, and that these characters could just as easily disappear like every other character in the series. But for what they are, they serve their purpose. I enjoy Jen Taylor creating a new yet familiar AI, playing a younger and more adorable character in the form of the weapon, and Echo 216 is perfectly serviceable as an everyman for the Chief to play off of, giving Chief someone to trust and butt heads with as the story needs. Basically, Had it released in a more complete or at least slightly more polished state, it might have ranked higher on this list. But that scope creep of the narrative weighs it down. Will this be another abandoned narrative? Will it fulfill any of the promises that it made in its own campaign? Will we start to get a drip feed of resolutions to previous narrative threads? Time will tell on that. At the end of the day, is it fun? It is. It's a damn good shooter. Unfortunately, you dig any deeper into it and it just starts to fall short. 8 is as high as this game will go on this list. While I'm not expecting a miracle in the form of story DLC, I do have hope. And that's the main theme of Infinite. In the game and in a metatextual way, there's always hope.
Number 7.
Fire Team Osiris. The light is green.
Halo 5 is the exact opposite of Halo 4. Fun gameplay, solid level design, and terrible writing. The characters are spectacularly underwritten. Team Osiris waste big voice actors like Laura Bailey and Nathan Fillion on barely their characters. And Blue Team doesn't have a single personality trait to share amongst them. The story is anemic. Essentially, the Chief gets a phone call and is told to go to a certain planet. Team Osiris follows 2 steps behind. This is not at all the story the marketing said it was. It was sold as Team Osiris vs. Blue Team, Master Chief vs. Spartan Locke.
All hail the conquering hero. The one who was supposed to save us all. But now I must save us. From you.
Whatever.
And while the premise could have had emotion and conflict in it, the story we actually got had none. And then there's the reveal that not only did Cortana survive Halo 4's emotional finale, but she's now an evil space tyrant. This isn't developed further or elaborated on, opting instead for a weak cliffhanger ending, ushering in a more depressing modern era for Halo. Everything outside of the plot and character writing is top-notch. The gameplay took a huge step up in quality. The weapon sandbox is vast and diverse. Promethean weapons finally feel worthwhile. The Promethean faction got an overhaul. The inclusion of the Promethean soldier increased enemy variety and gave 343 a chance to redesign the Promethean Knights, making them sub-bosses similar to chieftains and hunters, with weak spots to exploit. Adding a glint on sniper weapons alleviated some of the bad Promethean crawler design, which made it impossible to tell what weapons they were holding until you killed them. Multiplayer is a huge step forward from Halo 4, with the removal of weapon loadouts and the addition of new game types like Warzone and my personal favorite, Warzone Firefight. Again in the campaign, we have what might be 343's best levels, with multiple paths, hidden alternative routes, and smart enemy and weapon locations rewarding exploration. Halo's always been fun to co-op, but this is the only Halo with a good narrative explanation for it. Each Spartan has their own starting loadouts and unique HUD, but otherwise play the same. The only negatives to this co-op focus is that ally AI is a complete crapshoot, and 343 decided to remove couch co-op entirely. A regrettable decision. Even the narrative has its strengths. Spartan Locke is a fantastic post-Halo 3 protagonist. His past as an Oni assassin and status as a Spartan 4 makes everyone he meets instantly distrust him. But his compassion, courage, and keen diplomatic mind allows him to navigate politically tense areas and allows him to pursue his goals while aiding others along the way. We also loved the variety of environments. From abandoned plague ship to space elevator to colony in a glass world to fighting down the back of a mile-long robot to the elite homeworld of San Helios, which is home to the best 3 missions in the game. And it was great to see Arbiter and be there when he finished his fight against the Covenant remnants. We realize this is the most controversial placing on this list. It's poorly written and completely undermines the best things about Halo 4. But it's a fun afternoon in co-op, and its multiplayer was such a staple for both of us. And it had been 5 years since there was a good Halo multiplayer to play. And for those reasons, that was enough to make it our number 7.
Number 6. Halo Wars 2 released nearly 8 years after the original. The original developer, Ensemble Studios' closure, meant there was no active development on the sequel until 2014. At this point, 343 Studios had risen as the primary developer of the Halo franchise. Because they were focused on the mainline Halo games, they opted to partner with an outside studio to continue the Halo Wars series. Thus, Creative Assembly was chosen to develop Halo Wars 2. Once again, a prestigious real-time strategy studio was chosen to develop a Halo RTS. And the result? Pretty decent, actually. Many quality of life improvements were made, while player bases were still paint by numbers, a side effect of simplifying for console controls. The gameplay itself has actually been overhauled. The control scheme made more intuitive, the rock-paper-scissors gameplay has been refined with a design that shifted the game more towards longer-range units, including the fantastic new designs like the blisterbacks, which is actually our favorite new unit in the whole damn game, to be honest. I mean, look at this thing! It's freaking awesome! As much as I enjoyed the gameplay, though, my favorite thing about the game is more narrative-based. The Spirit of Fire wakes up from cryosleep after the events of Halo 4, and happen upon a very not destroyed and very deserted Forerunner Ark. And with this comes my favorite addition to the Halo universe in 10 years, The Banished. While I could have easily said Atriox, games that he appears in have a bad habit of giving him a strong introduction and then hiding him for 90% of the game's story. The Banished, though, I love their design, replacing the spacefaring theocracy of the Covenant, absorbing cultures and repurposing alien technology. You now have an army of scavengers and mercenaries, under the banner of a legendary folk hero, who promises that they will never bow to anyone. The inherent hypocrisy in the Banished almost worshipping Atriox as a religious figure wasn't lost on me. They also bring a more visceral and violent type of villain to the universe. And I love their redesign of familiar vehicles in the series, giving them a more slapped-together-in-a-garage look. Specifically, how the Wraiths look like they have cow catchers on them now. We've seen the calculating and efficient Covenant invasions, the chaos and horror of the Flood, the endlessly resurrecting Prometheans. The Banished, though, are a battle-hardened group of killers, with a relentless and singular focus. And because of how regimented and organized they are, they're enemies that actually most resemble the UNSC. At the most desperate and tenuous times during the Covenant War, the UNSC had to resort to tenacious and often suicidal strategies just to secure victories. Now they're facing an enemy that's just as tenacious as they were. This does wonders for the narrative. The entire campaign feels like an actual uphill battle for survival, and the final mission's banter between Cutter and Atriox solidifies both characters in my mind as bitter rivals going forward, and I hope one day they meet again in some capacity for a rematch.
I'll talk to my manager and see what I can do. Just a little longer. I'm talking to no one.
I would, of course, love for them to meet again in Halo Infinite, maybe as a campaign expansion. I won't hold my breath, but you never know.
Number 5. Yeah, this is sure to ruffle some feathers. So once again, I'll reiterate, this isn't a review or a definitive list of which game is objectively best. These are our opinions, and neither one of us thinks there's actually been a truly bad Halo game. With that out of the way, Halo Combat Evolved requires no introduction. This is a game that launched a 20-year-long franchise spread across video games, books, comics, web series, animation, and live action. This is the game that made the Xbox. This game didn't just figure out how to bring the first-person shooter genre to console, it revolutionized the FPS. I played a ton of first-person shooters on PC growing up. Like a lot of guys my age, I grew up with Half-Life and Counter-Strike, but none of the FPSs I ever played had vehicles like the Warthog, Banshee, Ghost, or Scorpion. And these enemies, the enemy AI might not be too complex, but each enemy type behaves completely different from one another. Elites are fast and dangerous, prone to going invisible or mixing up ranged combat with brutal melee attacks. Jackals march forward with their shields held up. Grunts dutifully follow orders until their superiors die. Then they scream and panic, or they fall asleep on the job. The Flood rush at you, but they also target Covenant and Forerunner sentries just as much as the player. And other FPSs certainly didn't have Marty O'Donnell's score, or these wonderful aesthetics. Sure, the UNSC looked a lot like the Marines from Aliens. That inspiration is obvious. But what looked like the Covenant before 2002? I love Halo. I loved doing split-screen couch co-op. I loved getting together with my friends and doing large system link matches on Sidewinder, Hang 'em High, boarding action, and of course, Blood Gulch. So why is this game so low if I can proclaim it as being great? Well, this isn't a list of what's objectively the best, or which game is the most influential. This is our favorite top 10. And when we both are playing through Halo, this game feels the most dated. It's a slower paced game. Vehicles are looser, weapons are not as precise. This is also the only game in which the AI Marines can't drive vehicles. Well, until 21 years later when Halo Infinite came out without that feature. While its sound design is still its best quality, that quality isn't applied uniformly. Weapons sound weak, as do explosions. Level design is also fairly bare. While there are standouts, mostly Silent Cartographer, a lot of Halo level design is low-textured hallways and levels that are repeated. And of the top 10 games, Halo Combat Evolved might have the single worst level in the franchise, with the level The Library. Ultimately, this is probably the biggest upset on the list. Halo is a classic, one of the most influential games of the last 20 years. But it's just not the Halo game we reach for when we want to play Halo. But I will say, without this game, there wouldn't have been Red vs. Blue. And without that, we wouldn't have ever met. And there wouldn't have been this YouTube channel.
God, our friendship is nearly 20 years old.
Nearly 2/3 of my life. Fuck.
Number 4. Bungie had lightning in a bottle with Halo 1. All they had to do was do Halo 1 again.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Chief and Cortana find another Halo, they meet another monitor, release the Flood again, the whole shebang. It's like printing money. I'm not exactly sure what happened right after Halo 1, but I imagine Jason, Marty, Joe sat down, had a quiet, calm conversation, and then after an ungodly amount of cocaine, tore a hotel room apart, and then this happened.
These go to 11.
It might be hard to see it now, but Halo 2 might just be the most ambitious sequel in the series. We could go on and on about the development problems, the texture popping, the cliffhanger ending. There are many issues that hold the game back from taking the top spot on this list. But here's why the game came so close. The sheer ambition of this game. Halo 2 was responsible for making Xbox Live viable. It helped launch it. In addition, it helped sustain it all the way up to the launch of the 360. Bungie also helped pioneer many things that we take for granted in console gaming now. Specifically bug fixing, balance patches, and downloadable content. While these were things that PC gaming had already been doing for years, Bungie laid the foundation for how other companies developing for consoles would handle these elements. Even if you didn't pay for the service, you could still buy and enjoy the content offline. And that's just the technical side of the game. I haven't even touched the narrative and characters. Halo 1 was a simple sci-fi action story. Halo 2 is a space opera. The cast of characters has been vastly expanded. Master Chief isn't even the most important character anymore. He is still the main character, though. We begin the story with him and we end the story with him. But the important character development arc belongs to Arbiter, a character that was nearly completely absent from the marketing of the game.
What use? I can no longer command ships, lead troops into battle.
Not as you are, but become the Arbiter.
And you shall be set loose against this heresy with our blessing.
What would you have your Arbiter do?
I, like most people, assumed this was my main antagonist. But no, not only was he not your enemy, you play through his journey of self-discovery, betrayal, and, eventually, his absolution within the Covenant. He lost his station in life, his pride, his honor, even his religion. And by the end, he becomes self-actualized and gains agency.
Tartarus, stop.
Impossible.
Put down the icon.
Put it down and disobey the hierarchs?
Tartarus, the prophets have betrayed us.
By the end of the game, his arc is complete. And if you see this game as the origin of the Arbiter, it is a complete story, and it's quite the satisfying hero's journey. And I know not everyone will share this opinion, but they successfully got me to empathize with my enemy in a video game. Of course, this was not the story that was sold to us in marketing, I'll admit that. But the game we got, the story and characters we were introduced to, it set the tone for Halo going forward. This is not a simple story about a cyborg in a power suit anymore. It was bigger than that. It was deeper. It was an entire universe now, and the possibilities were endless.
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
He said it! He said it!
Number 3. Halo ODST was made by contractual obligation. Bungie wanted out of Microsoft, and Microsoft would allow it for 2 more Halo games. ODST was made for cheap in Halo 3's engine, meant to be a half-priced expansion pack, until Microsoft wanted to sell it as a full-priced Halo game for Christmas. ODST is a mood. It's somber and lonely. It's dark and mysterious. It's vulnerable and tense. For the first time in the series, we're not a Spartan cyborg or an elite alien warrior. We're just soldiers. Our jumps aren't as high, we take more fall damage, and we don't have shields like a traditional Halo game. We're one person against enemies far stronger than us. The streets of New Mombasa are dark and hostile, but we're never alone as the city itself seems to guide us, directing us towards secrets, weapons, and supplies, giving us environmental storytelling unlike anything in previous Halo games. The music is one of Marty O'Donnell's best, striking that impossible balance between sounding like a Halo game and a film noir. The voice cast is most of the cast of Firefly, and between their easy camaraderie and acting talent, they transform what would normally be easy archetypes into distinguishable characters. Each squad mate gets a level designed around their specification: heavy weapons, vehicles, sniping, and large-scale enemy battles. And while they all play the same, their missions showcase those abilities. There's so many standout missions, from driving fast in a zoo, fighting on rooftops, destroying an Oni installation, to the best non-Warthog race finale in the series. Reusing Halo 3's engine also meant the team knew it inside and out. creating some truly great missions and designing maps in such a way as to draw the player's eyes towards cinematic events. While ODST brought only a few maps to the Halo 3 multiplayer lineup, it did bring us Firefight, a PvE horde mode-like game type. This was such a great fit for the series, utilizing Bungie's great enemy design and AI in a cooperative multiplayer mode divorced from any story structure and pacing. The only thing more shocking than how long it took to introduce something like Firefight to the series is how many games since ODST have not included it. This also marks the first serious departure from the Halo formula, a noir detective story piecing together the mystery of what happened to your squad and collecting clues to a city-wide side story. These deviations in the formula would kind of become the norm for the series. A disaster war story, a personal story about mortality, a squad-based co-op shooter, and an open-world collectathon. So why isn't this any higher? Well, for one, its tone and genre mixing is really uneven, with a normal soldier being able to punch tanks into pieces, rip miniguns off of their stands and use them, and punch brute chieftains to death. A little more fall damage, wimpy grenade throw, and a small jump really doesn't sell the premise of being less powerful than the Master Chief. Likewise, the atmosphere and mood of the open world is directly contrasted with every single main mission, which are bombastic and action-packed as any of the Chief's adventures. And the open world of New Mombasa leaves a lot to be desired. It's all rather monotonous, with few landmarks to guide the player. So while it's fun to find secrets and exciting to notice the city's AI helping at first, it grows stale. But these are small quibbles for a very fun and engaging game with characters that quickly became fan favorites. And that's why it's sitting very pretty at number 3. Numero 2?
Halo Reach is the culmination of every lesson Bungie learned in its 10 years developing Halo games. Rock-solid multiplayer with bold tweaks to the Halo formula, including their new multi-stage invasion mode. The multiplayer progression system, which in my humble opinion was the best of the series, and a cosmetic unlock system that should have been more widely adopted by the industry, but sadly wasn't. Enough can't be said about its phenomenal multiplayer experience. But I truly think the real star here is the campaign. In the case of Noble 6, having a Spartan you can customize in the campaign cutscenes is just insanely cool. And with the recent Master Chief Collection updates, they've added even more armor pieces. I mean, look at him! He looks ridiculous, and I love it! After all these years, though, I have a new appreciation of what Bungie did here with Noble Team. It's the story of how a team of super soldiers became superheroes. How they went from perfect killing machines to beacons of hope. And it all starts with George. He interacts peacefully with civilians, even attempts to comfort someone who lost their father. He's mocked by his fellow Spartan for this.
Big man forgets what he is sometimes.
Even Dr. Halsey shuts him down for being sentimental.
Just after we found your scientist's daughter, Mom. She was hiding in the...
Irrelevant. The elites. Tell me more about them.
Civilians aren't people to Spartans. They are at best a nuisance. Even in the midst of an invasion, they don't take kindly to non-military taking matters into their own hands. That is until Spartans start dying.
That's a one-way trip.
We all make it sooner or later. Better get going, Six. They're gonna need you down there. Listen, Reach has been good to me. Time has come to return the favor. Don't deny me this. Tell him to make it count.
George, the heart of the team, meets his end by destroying the Covenant dreadnought bombarding the planet. After this, an entire armada shows up. This is no longer an invasion. It's a death sentence. Up against an unwinnable battle, the Spartans shift their purpose to defense and evacuation of the planet, scraping for any advantage or desperate action to buy those trapped on the surface a little more time. We get two of the best missions in the game out of this: Exodus and New Alexandria. After initially failing to save the first evacuation transport, the Spartans rushed to neutralize the Covenant forces, exterminating anyone trying to escape. From here, we move to the skies above New Alexandria to aid the UNSC forces. This is when the Spartans' image begins to shift in the minds of the populace. At the opening of the game, Spartans are regarded with suspicion and fear, called killers to their faces. But in the second act, when the Spartans come onto the scene, they're greeted with praise and gratitude. They go from being weapons to saviors, but in doing so, may have overstayed their position. They risk speaking over unsecured channels to answer an emergency call, a call that gives away their position and ultimately leads to Kat's death. It was a calculated risk, and it cost them dearly. Now, when asked away to secure an Oni base, the Spartans regard the orders with annoyance. They've lost the heart and souls of the team. Now they're being sent on a seemingly trivial wild goose chase. But ultimately, when they learn that what they carry could be the key to winning the war, each Spartan throws themselves upon the sword to protect what is being referred to as the last hope of humanity. The stakes could not be higher, which suits Noble Team just fine, and it's one of the best race-to-the-finish endings in the series. In the end, after the smoke and ash have settled, Noble Six comes to the end of his story. After securing the package, he digs in and goes out the only way Spartans know how. I think Dr. Halsey put it best.
But you belong to Reach. Your body, your armor, all burned and turned to glass. Everything. Except your courage. That you gave to us. And with it, we can rebuild.
And with that, we come to our last entry. Take it away, Timmy.
This is the way the list ends. It's impossible to overstate how big this game was. Halo 2 ended on such a cliffhanger. Brutes had usurped the elites, the Halo array was primed, Arbiter joined forces with Miranda and Johnson. Chief left Cortana behind on the holy city of High Charity, as it was being infected by the resurgent intelligent flood. And then, the Chief followed the Covenant back to Earth, where the fate of the universe would be decided.
Sir, finishing this fight.
Halo 3 also had to live up to its predecessors. Halo 1 launched the Xbox. Halo 2 launched Xbox Live. Both were reasons to own the Xbox. And on top of everything, there was an incredible ad campaign, selling this as the poignant grand finale to one of the 2000's biggest media franchises. And the game somehow delivered. The music is the best Marty O'Donnell's score ever. Combat was overhauled in the campaign. Brutes came in distinct ranks. Their helmets could break off, allowing for headshots. The AI was smarter than ever before, and Scarabs now had their own AI and multiple ways to engage and take down. And even the Flood get a glow up, now being able to infect soldiers and transform them into combat forms, convert the dead back into Flood, and introduced a pure form that can transform from crawling stalker form to a stationary turret ranged form, and into a hulking tank form. This mechanic is so cool it's weird it never came back with the mostly digital Prometheans. Halo 3 also introduced the first real attempt to create a fourth pillar in the combat, with deployable equipment, which were fine if extremely situational. Campaign maps were large and varied, with only Crow's Nest and Floodgate resorting to backtracking to pad out the length. Missions like Salvo Highway, The Ark, Halo, and my personal favorite, The Covenant, are so vast and varied that the series would never feel this huge ever again. In multiplayer, we had a then next-gen experience, with brand new modes like Infection and VIP, with all of the returning modes from previous Halo games. But best of all was the inclusion of the Forge mode. In Forge, players could create their own custom maps and modes, something PC gamers had been able to enjoy since the old Doom mod scene. But building custom maps on a console was unheard of. And finally there's the last Warthog run, as the incomplete Halo fires and breaks itself apart, which is still the best finale in the series. But the game isn't perfect. Arbiter went from arguably the main character of Halo 2 to essentially a glorified extra.
Were it so easy.
He gets to kill the Prophet of Truth.
You must be silenced.
But it's not really dwelled on or well written. Likewise, the mission Cortana is ugly and its layout is confusing. And then there's the interruptions of Cortana and later the Gravemind slowing everything down and never saying anything meaningful. These are the three big black marks on the game. Much smaller nitpicks include the Gravemind's plan makes absolutely no sense. High Charity just randomly appears next to the Ark. A few of the character choices make very little sense. It's all extremely nitpicky and it doesn't detract from the overall experience. This is an incredibly solid game, both in 2007 and in 2022. And this is our absolute favorite Halo game.
So there you have it. We had a lot of fun putting this series together, and thank you all for all the comments so far.
We've planned on doing a podcast discussion episode about the whole series in the next month. So, if there's something specific about the Halo franchise you want us to discuss, just leave some comments on these videos before we record.
So, if they ask us about our scoring system and how we scored each game, are we going to break all that down for them?
Oh no.
Oh, thanks for watching, everybody.